Thank you guys for tuning in to the Be Insightful in Technology podcast. I'm your host, Shakiria Johnson. I also have a co-host with me today, and he's going to introduce himself.
My name is Byron Davis, IT professional for about 6 or 7 years, and happy to be here.
Yeah, he will be co-hosting with me for hopefully the long run with the podcast. And today we're going to get into today's episode about AI. We like to bring different topics. We talk about tech news and tips and everything on how to get into your career. What we'd like to do is talk about what AI is, artificial intelligence. Let's get down in the deep core side of it. Byron, I'm going to let you take this.
AI, as it stands, stands for artificial intelligence. It's a very day-to-day feature or software that is a part of our lives more than we actually know it to be. Is a part of our lives, the feature that we use on a day-to-day basis, whether it's from smartphones to just dial assisted programs when you call customer service agents and whatnot. It's complex in logic, but in terms of actual use, it's a normal thing that we use. Artificial intelligence is the simulation of human intelligence that's processed by machines, but more aligned with like computer systems. And specific applications of AI include some of the things I've already talked about, whether it's like Siri on your iPhone, Echo on any Amazon devices, Cortana on Windows devices, and so on and so forth. And how does AI work? It's more of think of it as like a feature or a product that's like programmer trained in order to have a certain output or desired outcome from those that develop it. So for Siri, you ask it a question, you're expecting an answer back in line with the content of the question that you asked. And there are different things that go into the back end of supporting this kind of process. So I'm going to let Shad touch on what that looks like and some of the things that actually go into refining and configuration for AI as we use it today.
So AI, in like my opinion, is just like a little toddler learning how to do things, and they're spitting out information. So the way AI truly learns is by using large amounts of data. And it analyzes the data and it figures out what goes where. So the data is typically labeled, and labeled data just simply means it's all set in a category. And that's how AI is able to distinguish a dog from a cat in a way. The way that it does this, AI has to learn. It goes through training models. So it takes in so many different sets of data and it continuously learns where that goes. Yeah, AI pretty much learns by training models, and it utilizes large sets of data to eventually be able to distinguish different things, like how to bake a cake. It can spit out different recipes, and whatever you ask for it, it can take the different data and distinguish it among different categories that it's learned. So it goes through a learning process, reasoning, self-correction, and creativity is what we have with Gen AI, which is generative AI. It's like coming up with something new. It's able to create new storylines, create content for you, and even generate pictures. It's being able to make things on its own. Some people may call it like AI having its own mind. Or I do want to touch on this topic with generative AI right after we kind of express the different technologies behind it. If you're looking to start programming AI, like really understanding the depths of it, some typical languages are like Python, R, Java, C++, and Julia. There are plenty more languages that you can use to program AI, but those are the top ones that are out today. Why is artificial intelligence important for us as we operate on a day-to-day basis? Right now, you may think like AI is taking over jobs, or is, doing what you could do. But in all honesty, AI is important due to efficiency. It takes those mundane tasks away from people and allow you to utilize your time a little bit more efficiently and better. I do think that AI is useful for,
Repetitive tasks.
yes, the repetitive task, as we've seen today. there's an entire store built on like just you entering the store is basically take a picture of your face as you go into the store, and there are no clerks, there's nobody helping out. It's like a self-serve type of store. When you pick up items, it recognizes the item that you put in your cart and it automatically adds it to pretty much your logical cart where you have to pay for it. I'm not even gonna lie, that's a whole job taken away from somebody that really needs it.
But it speaks to more so like what you're saying, like it's changing the way that we do things. Like I think you're talking about the Amazon storefront where like
Yes.
you don't have to there are no clerks outside of the people that actually stock the supplies in the storefront, and it's
Yes.
connected to your Amazon account, and it automatically detects how many items you have in your cart, the price of those items, it adds them to a cart, and when you exit the store, it actually charges the card that you have on file, all
Yeah.
in one like core process without you having to do anything. Um, and I feel like that's one of the more
That's
exemplary points of like where AI can take us, so to speak.
it's not very common now, but that's a definitely a future transition that we can see it heading towards.
Mm-hmm.
Some simple things, it's like using Gen AI to write emails for you, or being able to, summarize a video, as we just saw, like summarize.tech was able to summarize an entire YouTube video. And I'm not even mad at it. There are some YouTube videos or some things that are like hours long where you just don't have the time and you need those key points right now. I really do think that AI shifting those type of areas, you're seeing the future before your eyes in a way. I saw this
Mm-hmm.
other article that was talking about like AI is hot topic type term. It's another way to say robot. There's different things that has already been utilizing artificial intelligence that we technically don't even think about it anymore.
Mm-hmm.
One thing I do want to know or understand the more process of, this is something completely different. I don't know if it's AI related or if it's just a general technology where it has to be manually done. But have you ever witnessed, this is back when my sister first had her like first car. If you don't pay your car note, your car can just shut off.
The
Have you
kill
witnessed that
switch.
before? Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
and I was just like, considering we're moving to more EV and a lot more, I don't know what to call it, but they're more intertwined like cars, electronics, everything's becoming so connected
Mm-hmm.
that is, it can be easily controllable by a set of systems. Because I do feel like AI is kind of like a set of systems in a way
Mm-hmm.
where it can all be changed and controlled. I was about to say, and it could be like taken off of your plate, but so say to the car shop that sold you the car, they want an easy way to monitor people's payments, but they want an easy way to make sure that their their asset liability, whatever that they gave you, is still taken care of from afar to
Mm-hmm.
ensure that they still get their end of the bargain, their profit. The way that I saw it was just like utilizing technology. Imagine that you sold like a million cars that year or something. Over, let's say over the past like 2, 3 years, you sold so many cars. There's no way that one person can go and completely manage the finances for each of these cars.
Mm-hmm.
So how do we all control it, or what systems do we put in place to ensure that if this person didn't pay their car note, how do we how do we handle this without the need to involve a repo man or something? So
And
how do we get their attention?
I
That's just
have an example I'd like to share of
go ahead.
kind of like on the same tangent of the EV uprising, I guess you could say, and how AI is kind of um, extrapolating the way that we do normal things. I rented a Tesla at one point, and I'm relatively clumsy when it comes to vehicles, or people just leave their keys in a car, or your phone in the
Mhm.
car, or in the house, or whatever. You lock yourself out. I didn't think I'd be able to lock myself out with a card because it's a card that unlocks the car versus actual keys. So I left the key in the car. Thankfully, I mean, it's not running unless, you have it engaged. And my first thought was, how do I unlock an electric car with no key? Because normally it wouldn't be an issue because you can control it from your phone. But since this was a rental, I couldn't control it from my phone. So I called the rental company and they were able to remote unlock the car for like $10 versus in my experience with ICE vehicles, or you're just your regular gas vehicles, what ICE vehicles are.
Mhm.
You have to wait an hour, 2 hours before someone actually shows up, and then they have to jerry rig the door in order to open
It's
the
about
car.
$200 just for
Yeah, and
them
it's
to
about two
come do
hundred
it.
dollars, and it's like at the literally a press of a button, the same thing can be done in less time. I don't have to wait. Depending on the situation, that could be, beneficial. Like if it's snowing outside, or
Mhm.
if I have children locked in the car, or something like that, because kids do stuff. That time matters, and that level of effectiveness is like something that people growing up, like my grandparents, could only dream of. They would think it's
Mhm.
magic almost, is what they would compare it to. And I just think that having something like that readily available in the facet that it was created for is surreal. And even with like you said, machine learning and like these different patterns and algorithms that AI is essentially faced with refining itself in order to better itself, in order to better serve whatever processes that it undermines, like full self-driving, like you self-driving cars,
Mhm.
like that's data that's been aggregated over all of the other vehicle models that are already out on the street. As you're driving, it's collecting data like wind patterns, weather, trajectory, number of vehicles, or like ingestions in traffic, and it then dictates your route and everything just based off of that. And it'll drive the car for you to your destination. It'll auto lane change, park itself, like everything. The more the more we're able to refine it and the more accessible we're able to make it, the more we'll start to see things change that become legacy, I guess you could say. Like things that we normally do now, like the way the fax machine became legacy once people could email, or
Mhm.
the way that taxis became legacy once you could just get a lift. Like it wasn't something that you had to flag someone down, versus you can put in that you're at a certain point in a vicinity, and it'll let the riders know that, hey, this is within your route that we've already pre-configured for you to be able to do most efficiently for your route. It's something that if we are able to get a handle on, it can only help us in the foreseeable future.
I like that. I'm excited to see where it goes, only due to the fact of just it really does make life easier because it's meant to help with the inconveniences that we experience on the day to day.
Mm-hmm.
I think that with the example that you gave with being able to have the car unlocked within minutes because you were able to get remote support for a vehicle is actually the craziest game changer because I've locked myself
Mm-hmm.
out of my car plenty of times. And I only have one key. Like you can see the shift from using a key to push to start to, I guess keyless entry to the point where it's just a car. It might lean me towards a Tesla due to the simple support, but as a network person, I'm just like, why do they have so much access to my car? But okay. like,
No, I agree.
like as everything becomes a smart machine, how
It
much
literally everything about it is just like you said, like with us going more in towards this like digital age and leaving behind like linear and analog systems in order to do what we already do but better and faster with more scale. It's like we're facing like the future of what's to come, so to speak. And it's foreign to us now, but I feel like it'll be so second nature if we make it something that we consistently use. It's to the point where I have to be careful when I say Siri in my house, because and I feel like that's one
is
of the
constant.
disadvantages or one of the things that people are weary of about taking on AI, is because they feel like they're being monitored, or someone could hack into their proprietary information through AI and like hijack their life essentially. Which
It's possible. Like
yeah,
it
it's
is. Like
possible.
it's possible. Like there are plenty of people who look out there to steal information. One of my concerns was like the constant monitoring, as in like we all have phones on us. So
Hmm.
I know you may have had some older, grandparents or just, older family members that are just like, I don't want the government watching me and all this other stuff. Like they were afraid of all that. But I feel like you're already being monitored consistently when you have a phone. Like once you got that, it was everything's in like every service probably on your phone is in your business. There is a thin line between it where it's like, are we going to care more about security? And I think we get into this in a couple later episodes about like AI being socially conscious and basically the bias that it may have. But we also need to talk about the security features that need to be implemented in order to make AI safer. I was going through Instagram and there was a reel that was saying how people can take your face and make different photos of you doing
Hmm.
something. As in, like everybody has seen like the Lensa photos where you can show yourself as an astronaut. You can have like your own generated work photo. You
You're
can
talking about
also,
are you talking about like deep fake stuff?
yeah.
Yeah. It's like
So
or like the AI generated art.
yes, and they were mentioning how like you can take someone's face and then basically generate like a nude, and
Hmm.
it was crazy because a lot of the stuff we all know, like when it goes on the internet, is basically there forever. The dark side of it is you can ruin people's livelihood and lives with the deep fake side of it all, where you potentially have them in a compromising situation, and it's not them because the image is not real. When AI starts getting very real, it's going to be hard to differentiate between what is actually a real person, real life type energy or context
Hmm.
versus what's artificially generated. I'm not a cybersecurity person, so I don't know what details and security features will truly be implemented to be able to be proactive in these types of situations, because I know a lot of it with AI being so like rapidly growing is going to be reactive, as kind of a lot of our laws are, where it's just like, dang, this stuff gets done and then it's time to fix these mistakes because this shouldn't be happening anymore. And that's just the darker side of it. The light side of it is I'm going to keep saying this, you can write an email pretty simply. You can put it in a professional tone because I really like that.
Hmm.
The simple
Yeah,
stuff.
because it's just like the amount of emails that we send on probably like a day-to-day basis. It's like if I can get out what I'm trying to say and it's aligned with the context of how I'm trying to deliver it, like I don't necessarily want to take the time to write it out if I don't have to.
Mhm.
But I feel like that gets more into some of the other points that we have of like coming episodes of like how how we see a shift in how we operate with AI technologies, or who are the people that are developing and making like these different AI technologies that we use, um, and what's the intent, or like what's the checks and balances in place for like any entities with malicious intent with people's information and stuff. So I'm really looking forward to us talking about that in further detail in the episodes to come.
I do too. So, to give a reflection of what we talked about this episode, we mentioned how artificial intelligence is like the human intelligence process curated by machines. So,
Hmm.
how we think and operate, we want a machine to be able to do that same thing. And another thing that we highlighted here is how AI learns. So it takes in those large data models and it goes through and it sorts through the information and it figures out what is what is this? How does this work? How does it function? What can we do with it? So that way it takes in information, like I mentioned, like how a little toddler is learning, how they're constantly taking in information and learning how to apply it. AI is doing the same thing. And some good programming languages, if you're interested in getting into AI, there are plenty of courses available out there in the space with which utilize like programming languages like Python, R, Java, C++, and more.
Essentially like freeing up your time with things that you already do. Like it's in the semblance of like, you know, you used to have to go to a teller in order to get cash, and now you can go to an automatic teller to get your cash.
Mm.
And you used to have to go to a teller to deposit your check, and now that same ATM that gives you money, you can deposit your check at. Um, or you can do it from your phone now. Like it's just an evolution of processes that we're already familiar with, but in a way that takes out the actual like active legwork that we have to do.
Well, another thing that I've been seeing about AI, and then we can kind of wrap it up, where there are AI coaches or, AI learning things where you kind of take a test and it figures out how to put you on the best path based on, your results. Or if you're looking for coaching, you can ask a question to get further insight into like your career or other topics that you're interested in. It's just AI can be used as a tool to help you. And I do think people should be able to take advantage of the tools, especially if you don't have people in your network doing some things. One thing that I should talk about more is hallucinations. AI can have hallucinations, as in the information that was spit out is incorrect. You have to be able to distinguish between what is real and what is not. And what I mean by this, you can get information on, let's see, you can get information on a car and they can say that it has a certain engine type that belongs in a airplane only. Typically, this stuff gets transition out as people who are more so experts on the topic continue like training the models, as in like they verify what's real and what's not. But it is something to take into account when you are utilizing any AI experience, especially some of the Gen AI, since it's very new and it's learning different things, to take it with a grain of salt. Be careful with the information that you do receive. Not everything is true. That is, I just got to throw that one out there. There are still some software platforms that are getting into the industry with AI, and they're utilizing training models. The information that you put in can also be utilized in training, so it's going to have different outlooks on things, and they may not always be accurate. So that's just always something to be aware of when you test out some products. I will say that's about it for today's podcast. I do want to let you guys know that should have a lot more AI topics coming up for the rest of this month. Me and Byron will be doing a topic of the month type of series, and as we get into this new year, it will be AI, artificial intelligence. How does it help us? And just different ways that we use it, and more topics to come. So thank you guys for tuning in today's episode. Connect with us on LinkedIn, rate and subscribe to the podcast on whatever platform that you're listening on. I hope you gain some